There's a moment we all fear outside. When the trail disappears and you realize you're lost. You might have heard you should follow a stream to civilization or get to higher ground. I wanted to see if that's true, so I started digging and found this massive database of over 50,000 search and rescue cases, and what I found was shocking. Most of what we've been told is wrong, because 3 out of every 4 lost cases are found within just 2 miles of their last known location.
Which seems strange. How do we get lost when we're so close?
It turns out when we get lost, we show a predictable set of patterns that can make things worse, sometimes deadly. But there are ways we can override them. I'm going to show you what happens when you get lost, and more importantly, some tactical steps to help you get found. This is Geraldine Largay. You might have heard of her.
Jerry Largay.
Geraldine Largay.
Geraldine Largay.
She was hiking the Appalachian Trail in 2013 when she stepped off trail for what was supposed to be a quick bathroom break and got lost. Phone records show she desperately tried to get cell service. One text to her husband read, "Lost since yesterday. Off trail 3 or 4 miles. Call police." Her body was tragically found 2 years later, just half a mile from the trail. Despite being an experienced backpacker and hiking on a marked trail, she lost her way. Now, it's easy to point to things like the loss of cell service and the lack of compass skills as culprits.
Definitely true, but here is what I was more curious about.
She thought she was off trail 3 or 4 miles, but was found only a couple thousand feet off trail.
That's a big difference.
And this hints at something deeper going on. In 2023, researchers at UC Santa Barbara used virtual reality to learn more about something called spatial navigation. Participants were asked to navigate the same maze under 2 different conditions, a low-stress condition and a high-stress condition. The stress condition caused participants to travel farther by taking longer, less direct paths, even though both groups had already been trained on the maze layout. This study suggests you will find your way out, but won't take the most efficient route, even if you're familiar with it. Okay, but this is a maze. What about a more realistic outdoor setting? Well, this study, conducted in 2023, had 66 male participants navigate a grassy virtual reality setting. Both groups started off at a location and were guided down a winding path to an apple. They were then asked to go find their way back to the starting location. The stressed participants misjudged the starting location worse than the non-stressed participants. They specifically misjudged distance.
Does that sound familiar?
Simply put, these studies, combined with stories like Geraldine's, suggest our navigational skills severely underperform when we're stressed, especially when trying to calculate things like distance. But perhaps there's a deeper explanation to all this.
Not just the how, but the why. Why does this happen?
And if you're worried about getting lost, you're gonna wanna pack out food. I'm Chris Cage, the founder of Green Belly Meals. They're ready-to-eat adventure meals loaded with over 600 calories and a bunch of other macros, which makes them an ideal backcountry lunch. They've often been called a Rice Krispie treat on steroids.
It's like a Rice Krispie treat.
It's fantastic.
Check us out at greenbelly.com. So, why do our brains seem to misfire and work against us in a time when we desperately need them most? Well, the moment you realize you're lost, your brain doesn't respond like it's solving a complex maze. It responds like you're being hunted. It triggers the release of a lot of chemicals like adrenaline, shifting your entire nervous system into fight or flight mode. Heart rate spikes, breathing accelerates,
And this is where the real problem is.
that stress response shuts down higher brain function, part responsible for decision-making, memory, and spatial reasoning.
Their sense of time is off. Their ability to remember landmarks they just recently saw goes down.
Instead of seeing a forest, you just see trees.
That's why hikers miss trails they were just on or cross the same stream multiple times without realizing it. When we're lost, we're wired to keep moving.
Even if that movement makes us more lost.
So, are we at the mercy of our mammalian brains? Not necessarily. At least for me, understanding these studies definitely gave me new appreciation for the meaning of stay calm, which is definitely helpful advice, but it's not the whole story. We actually have some tools hardwired into us to help us navigate, whether we're aware of them or not. In 2009, researchers led a series of experiments to test whether people can maintain a straight walking path without obstructions or many visual landmarks at all. Participants were hooked up to GPS trackers and asked to walk in a straight line for several hours through large, open environments. Think dense forest and the vast, featureless Saharan desert. In both environments, participants were found walking in circles, and often quite literally crossing their own path multiple times. In fact, the study was called Walking Straight into Circles.
If all you can see is the trees and you're not really skilled in navigation cross country, people will wind up walking in circles.
This might sound discouraging if you get lost in a featureless setting. However, there is more to the study that provides a more optimistic outlook for us. And this gets back to our built-in navigational tools. The participants only walked in circles if the sunlight or moon was not present. In other words, even with no survival or navigation training, the moon and sun seem to help us navigate. And I learned we have something a little better than just using the moon and sun to follow a straight line. We have what is called a cognitive map. This cognitive map is developed by informational inputs, smells, and visuals that help you determine your location in an environment. Think signs, landmarks.
Your cognitive map is also going to be highly reliant upon landmarks.
This information is then stored in our memory.
Which can be used in two different ways.
Allocentric navigation is like a bird's eye view. Think aerial maps. And egocentric navigation is like a first-person system view. Think more street view and directions like turn left in 500 feet. All of these inputs build to what we would describe as familiarity in a region. The neuroscience behind cognitive mapping can go pretty deep, and a guy named John O'Keefe actually won the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine in 2014 for his work discovering these place and grid cells. But this cognitive map was essential from an evolutionary standpoint. It would help our hunter-gatherer ancestors travel long distances and navigate complex terrain and ultimately return home. So we have this ability to build maps inside our brains, but stress
somewhat erases, at least temporarily, our ability to access this cognitive map.
Koester also noticed patterns in these search and rescue cases. We humans tend to do a handful of things when we get lost. These patterns ended up being the basis for his search and rescue operations. Getting lost often starts at a specific decision point, a trail fork or directional change that is missed.
The biggest thing that can worsen your navigational performance is you're not paying attention. You may have walked by the trail intersection and didn't see it.
Humans, as discussed, have a tendency to unknowingly walk in circles. But also, if present, we have a tendency to follow linear features. Ridge lines, forest lines, rivers.
It's like, hey, it's not demanding from a navigation perspective to follow this. I'm just going to follow it in the hopes it leads me to civilization in some way.
Or we might go up a hill for a vantage point or go down a hill looking for civilization.
But not many of us do what is considered possibly the best thing to do.
Now, when it comes to what to do when you're lost, there are entire books and survival courses on this. I actually kept coming across the US Army's survival manual while researching this, covering everything from basic navigation to how to spearfish with bamboo. I'll link up to that below if interested.
But let's cover some universal basics that hopefully all of us can remember and help us not get lost. First, stop.
The first thing you need to do is just sit down and take some deep breaths and just kind of let that initial fight, flight, or freeze pass.
This might take a minute to adjust, but you need it to calm down in order to think and navigate clearly. Next, assess your surroundings. Identify landmarks, a rock formation, body of water, anything unique and memorable. These are inputs that will help you build your cognitive map. And finally, plan. This step is the most tactical, but can you guess what Dr. Koester recommends doing?
Backtracking.
Typically, backtracking, although it's one of the least common strategies of lost people, is most likely to be the most successful strategy.
You're going to want to mark where you currently are and systematically work your way back to your last known location. I've often called this the satellite method. It looks like it has also been called the hub and spoke method though. But you're going to flag your current location, break a visible tree limb, stack rocks, tear off a strap, whatever will be easy for you to find again. Then walk 50 paces in the direction you think is correct. If it's not, return back to the flag and repeat in another direction until you do. If that first wave doesn't work, expand the perimeter like a target until you do. By staying calm and slowly building out this perimeter, you should be able to cover a couple miles, which according to the data will have a high likelihood of getting you back to where you started and not end up in the search and rescue database. Hopefully with some preparation and now some awareness and tactical steps, you'll feel more comfortable if you do get lost.
Peace.
Look lost. Okay, not that lost.